Imagine stepping onto a train, your entire life packed into a single suitcase. You don't know what awaits you on the other end, but you know one thing: you can't stay here. The year is 1916, and across the American South, millions of African Americans are facing a choice: endure the crushing weight of Jim Crow laws, racial terror, and economic despair, or take a leap into the unknown. This is the story of the Great Migration, one of the largest and most consequential movements in American history. What caused it? Who were the people behind it? And how did it reshape the United States forever? Let's uncover the forgotten history of the Great Migration. To understand why the Great Migration happened, we must go back to 1865, when the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished. Freedom, however, was short-lived. Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, gave African Americans new rights, but after federal troops withdrew from the South, white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan quickly rose to power. Jim Crow laws, enforced in the late 19th century, stripped away black rights, segregating everything at schools, restaurants, even drinking fountains. Life under Jim Crow was brutal. Voting was nearly impossible due to literacy tests and poll taxes. Lynchings were common. By 1900, thousands of black men, women, and children had been murdered in acts of racial terror. Meanwhile, the economy kept black workers trapped in sharecropping, an exploitative system that replaced slavery with a different form of economic servitude. But by the early 20th century, change was in the air. The dawn of industrialization, the collapse of the cotton industry due to the boll weevil infestation of the 1910s, and the growing inequality in wages between black and white workers created a storm of economic and social unrest. Between 1910 and 1920, the black population of cities like Chicago and Detroit doubled. 1914, World War I begins. As European battlefields consumed millions of soldiers, American factories faced a desperate labor shortage. The war halted immigration from Europe, and northern industrialists turned their eyes to the South, where millions of African Americans were trapped in poverty. Between 1916 and 1940, over 1.6 million African Americans boarded trains heading north to Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Philadelphia. They followed newspapers like the Chicago Defender, which encouraged black families to flee the South and advertised job opportunities up north. Many took jobs in meat-packing plants, steel mills, and automobile factories. But this wasn't just a movement of labor, it was a cultural revolution. The 1920s saw the rise of the Harlem Renaissance, where figures like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Duke Ellington redefined black identity through poetry, music, sports, and art. Cities pulsed with the sound of jazz, and African Americans were carving out new spaces for themselves in American society. Yet, the journey north wasn't always a smooth one. Racism still thrived in the North, and black migrants often found themselves confined and limited to overcrowded ghettos due to redlining policies, a discriminatory practice that denied loans and housing to black families outside designated black districts. By 1939, the world was at war again. World War II reignited the demand for labor, and once again, African Americans seized the opportunity. The Second Great Migration, from 1940 to 1970, was even bigger than the first. This time, over 5 million black Americans left the South, heading not only north but also west to cities like Los Angeles, Oakland, and Seattle. This migration was driven not only by jobs but also by racial violence. In 1943, the Detroit race riot erupted, exposing deep-seated racial tensions. Redlining, a discriminatory housing policy, kept black families from buying homes in white neighborhoods. Despite the North's promise of opportunity, segregation and racism still followed. But this time, African Americans were no longer willing to stay silent. The civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 60s. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X were all shaped by the experiences of migration. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 and Fair Housing Act of 1968 were direct responses to the injustices faced by black migrants in the North and West. The Great Migration changed America forever. It shifted political power, leading to the election of black mayors, governors, and eventually, a president. It transformed American music, literature, and sports. But the fight for equality continues. The legacy of segregation lingers in economic disparities, policing, and housing discrimination. The same challenges faced by migrants in the early 1900s still affect black communities today. So now, I leave you with a question: what if the Great Migration never happened? How different would America look today? And, have you or your family experienced migration in your own history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more hidden history with Native Historian.